The name is James. What? We did this intro already, and so did every other content creator? Okay, so I'm gonna spare you guys the funny intro, and we're just gonna get right into the video. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? James here, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to get right into my favorite Daniel Craig James Bond movies. Yes, that includes Spectre. But guys, I am so excited to rank them from my least favorite to my most favorite, because I had a really hard time with my number one, especially after No Time to Die, which is in theaters this weekend. If you missed my review, it's right at the top of the screen, y'all, and trust me, the movie's excellent. Now, before we get into my ranking, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where we talk about movies like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, y'all. And go ahead and get loud in the comments below and let me know your ranking. Which is your favorite Daniel Craig James Bond movie, and which is your least favorite? Because for me, that's an easy pick. Alrighty, y'all. Well, you know what? Let me waste no more time, and let's get into the lay of the land. And if you don't want to hear this, of course, time code's at the bottom. You can get right into the ranking. But for those who want to hear about Daniel Craig's run as James Bond, let's break it down. Daniel Craig hopped on the scene as James Bond with Casino Royale in 2006, and of course, it culminated with No Time to Die. He was James Bond for 15 years, you guys. And trust me when I tell you, I didn't really know Bond before Casino Royale. I might have seen the Pierce Brosnan, and we'll talk about that soon, that movie, Die Another Day or something like that, but I was not the biggest James Bond fan at the time, but it was Daniel Craig who got me into the franchise. And the one thing I will say after revisiting some of the older James Bond movies, I do think Daniel Craig is probably the best James Bond that we've gotten on screen, at least to me, because what I will say is, throughout these 5 films that Daniel Craig has participated in as 007, none of them are truly awful, but there are some that outshine the rest. But now that you know a little bit about Daniel Craig and his run as James Bond, let's go ahead and get started with my least favorite James Bond movie during this Daniel Craig era, and it has to be 2015's Spectre. And I know this is probably not the most surprising pick on this list, but after director Sam Mendes delivered on Skyfall, I expected a really good follow-up with Spectre. I mean, it had an all-star cast, Daniel Craig as we know, but you're bringing in an amazing actor in Christoph Waltz as Blofeld, which is, from what I've been hearing, one of the more like legendary marquee villains for James Bond. And I don't think that they treated the villain storyline here very well. We barely get Christoph Waltz in this movie anyway, but I also think that the writing is a little too incoherent. It tries to connect way too many story threads. You have Madeline Swan, of course, who is important in No Time to Die, but then you have so many different things going on. You have the 9 eyes, if I'm not mistaken, you have C, and then everything with M, and it's just a little too jam-packed for a single James Bond movie. And honestly, that opening sequence, that one shot, which is sort of like a one shot, but not really, it has like that Birdman effect. I do think that the quality of that first, 10-15 minutes is not indicative of the rest of the film. For me, the movie starts off on a very high note, and it just continues to go down and down and down. And at the end of the film, I left disappointed, and after another rewatch, guys, I was still down on Spectre. I just think it really could have been much better than it was, and there's a reason Sam Mendes most likely either wasn't asked to come back for No Time to Die, or just didn't find himself in the director's chair for the final Daniel Craig film. But moving on, guys, let's get into my next favorite James Bond movie that actually surprisingly isn't as bad as I once thought it was. And coming in at number 4 is Quantum of Solace in 2008, directed by Mark Forster, and I'm not gonna lie, I used to hate this film much more than I do now. I saw this film once in theaters and I was so upset. It was such a drop off in quality for me from Casino Royale, and I really had high expectations for this follow-up film. And I do think the story isn't terrible, right? I just think it's the execution that was flawed, and unfortunately the writer's strike that year didn't really help the movie itself. There were many moments where I believe it's on record where Daniel Craig had to work out the script with the director, and well, Daniel Craig, as he says it himself too, is not really a screenwriter. So it's interesting to see how the third act is just so muddled, because it does take on a different identity compared to the rest of the film. And at one point, guys, Quantum of Solace was by far the worst Daniel Craig movie to me, but I do think it has a leg up on Spectre simply for the fact that it is a nice little epilogue to Casino Royale. We still get James Bond dealing with what happened with Vesper and feeling betrayed, jaded, and I do love the fact that he's almost going a little rogue, and And I think that Quantum of Solace has a lot of good jumping off points. I even think the villain is really good here, Dominic Green, played by Matthew Amalric, and I think that he does a good job with what he's given, but again, the script doesn't necessarily cater well to the villains in this story. But I just really think that Quantum of Solace is a little hated on too much compared to what it really is. I think it's a decent film. It's just not one of the better Daniel Craig movies. But you want to know what is a better Craig Bond movie, guys? That is my number 3, 2012's Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes. And listen, y'all, it was tough because at one point before No Time to Die, Skyfall was probably my number 2, close to that number 1 spot, but man, is Skyfall just a beautiful ode to everything in this franchise, and also it does pave the way forward for some interesting plot points for the future of James Bond. Skyfall, of course, coming at that 50th anniversary of the franchise as a whole, it had a lot of weight, of course, that came with it. Everyone wanted this movie to be a great nostalgic piece. They wanted to feel like this was Bond. They were coming off of Quantum of Solace, which many fans were disappointed in, from what I remember. And then you get Skyfall, which is the most beautiful of the Daniel Craig Bond movies, and that's thanks to my favorite cinematographer, Roger Deakins. But Skyfall really has it all. You get so many James Bond moments, you get a lot of moments that'll make you nostalgic as a lifelong fan, but you also get some really great performances here, not just from Daniel Craig, but Naomi Harris as Eve Moneypenny, you have Ben Whishaw as Q, you even have Ralph Fiennes in here as M, and I think that everything just comes together and culminates to that final act, which is Judi Dench and her character as M dying at the hands of Silva. Well, sort of. I mean, it's his henchman that shot him, or shot her, right? Yeah, that's right. But speaking of Silva, guys, I do think the villain here is probably my favorite, and I would say the best villain in the Daniel Craig Bond saga. And the reason I say that is because one man, Javier Bardem, brought this character to life. This is a otherwise generic kind of villain, but it's Javier Bardem that made it horrifying when he takes out his I don't know what it was like his false teeth that somehow kept his skin intact, and the cyanide in his laugh in that chamber he was locked up in. It is just terrifying, but his performance is excellent. It's intimate, and that one scene where he's just like feeling on Daniel Craig's face, it made me uncomfortable, but because I had a feeling, I'm like, oh man, Javier Bardem is gonna like skin this dude alive. It didn't happen, but I do think that Skyfall is just epic in every sense of the word, especially in the second half where the action set pieces just get larger and larger and larger. And even though Sam Mendes didn't do the greatest job with Spectre, I do think he needs to get some credit for Skyfall. He directs the heck out of this film, pieces together all of the storylines perfectly, I'd say, and the pace here is just flawless. I rewatched this movie like maybe once or twice, and I rewatched it again before the ranking, and let me tell you, it still holds up, and it might even be better than I remember it. Skyfall just has it all, guys, and I did not mean to rhyme there, but I will tell you that Skyfall is one of my favorite Daniel Craig James Bond movies, but even outside of that, I just think it's one of the best Bond movies of all time. And yes, if you're asking, it has the best theme in this Daniel Craig run with Adele's Skyfall. So let's move on to my top 2, and that starts with number 2, which was so tough. That is No Time to Die. Cary Fukunaga is just an excellent director. I loved what he did with True Detective Season 1, so I was very excited for what he would bring for this like send-off film for Daniel Craig as James Bond, and he over-delivered, honestly. Now, I know I said a lot about this film in my review, but this is quite possibly the most layered Bond movie during the Craig era, and it has everything I loved about these movies in one 2-hour and 40-minute epic. I mean, the story just goes in directions that I absolutely loved, and I don't think Bond movies from this point onward are gonna be the same, and that's okay, especially considering the fact that No Time to Die has the best representation of women in this franchise. I mean, Lashana Lynch crushed it, Ana de Armas, amazing, Naomi Harris is impeccable as always, but it is, for me, a quintessential James Bond movie. It has everything, and the pacing for me was excellent. I know some people said it felt kind of long in the middle, but not for me, guys. I actually kind of wanted more. And yes, I know it is at the center of a lot of conversation around how they handled James Bond and his send-off. And guys, let me be honest, I am totally okay with what happened in that third act. Now, I don't want to spoil it because some people might be watching this and they haven't seen No Time to Die yet, but what I will say is, it's the only way they could have gone about this. each of these stories, all 5 of them, they interconnect in a way I don't think any other James Bond movie is connected. So you have to have a proper ending, and I think the ending in No Time to Die was exactly that. But it is not my favorite James Bond movie during this Daniel Craig run. That belongs to 2006's Casino Royale. I had an incredibly tough time trying to figure out which to put at my number 1, because after I got out of No Time to Die, I thought, this is the best Daniel Craig Bond movie. But then I rewatched Casino Royale and I thought, oh my gosh, this really delivers on everything I want from a James Bond film, which is be different from the others and give James Bond some sort of layers as an individual. Make him feel something. He's not invincible, so show that he's vulnerable. And that's exactly what Daniel Craig does in this role, and director Martin Campbell did behind the scenes. We don't need Daniel Craig to say shaken, not stirred. We don't need Daniel Craig to always be in an Aston Martin that gives him the leg up in every single car chase. But what we do need from James Bond, for me, is at least someone to connect to. And I felt like I could connect to this version of James Bond, especially in that one scene where Daniel Craig and Eva Green are sitting in the shower. She's crying, and then 007 puts his arm around her and just comforts her. And it's one of the most emotional, visceral moments in this entire series. And I will tell you, I think it's probably my favorite scene in any of the Daniel Craig Bond movies, because it's in that moment that I felt, man, James Bond is a human being. It also introduces me to some of the best characters in this run, including Felix Leiter, played by the excellent Jeffrey Wright, and Mads Mikkelsen. Guys, I just think Mads Mikkelsen, he's an incredible actor anyway, but he is downright scary in this movie, even though I do think that Rami Malek in No Time to Die does an excellent job, even though he gets less screen time. And that is, of course, speaking to a bigger issue where villains in this entire run don't necessarily get the best efforts from the script. They get the short end of the stick many times. But I will tell you that overall, I think Casino Royale is going to stay as my number 1. But I mean, I'm seeing No Time to Die in IMAX soon, so what if that jumps to my number 1? Who knows? But I do know if it does change, I'll tell you on Twitter. But guys, there you have it. That is my ranking from least favorite to most favorite Daniel Craig Bond movies. In case you skipped to the end, let's review. At number 5 is Spectre. At number 4 is Quantum of Solace. Number 3 is Skyfall. And my top 2 are at number 2, No Time to Die. And my number 1 favorite Daniel Craig Bond movie is Casino Royale. And you know what? Dang it, I just watched all of these movies, and now I want to go back and rewatch them again after talking about the excellent run that Daniel Craig had as James Bond. He is the best Bond. I do think he has the best moments in the franchise, and I will tell you that everything here, from the scores, the composition, the cinematography, it really does culminate to be, in my opinion, one of the strongest runs of any character in a film franchise in history. So I love what Daniel Craig did here, and the man deserves an award or 2 or 3. So guys, there you have it. That's my real ranking of every single Daniel Craig James Bond movie. But again, I want to know what you have to say down below in the comments, and if you haven't already, hit that big red button, subscribe to the channel, tap on that thumbs up, and also hit that bell, because guys, guess what? We got a busy week next week, and I know I said it on the community page for this channel, but y'all, it's been so busy. All right, Monday through Friday has felt like Monday to Monday, because I feel like the day hasn't ended. But I will tell you guys, I thank you for your patience. It's such a joy creating content like this, and I can't do it without each and every one of your guys' support. So again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And I promise to come up with a better intro for the next Bond movie. I got probably 5 years.